Welcome to Check It Out with Jessica Lee. I have the co-founder and CEO of VeloCloud, who's now the GM of the VeloCloud at VMware, Sanjay Uppal. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you.
I am so excited to hear your thoughts on this whole transformation and the changes in the networking world. Because I know you started VeloCloud, 6 years ago, and you saw the opportunities. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so what was happening about 6 years ago was that a lot of the applications that previously existed in a company's data center, those were moving to the cloud.
Okay.
And at the same time, the network itself, broadband was becoming good enough for small companies to run their business on. So when you looked at that, the previous networking brought your branch offices back to the data center. But if the applications are no longer in the data center, they're sitting in the public cloud, it needed a new network architecture.
Okay.
And so we looked at that thinking, why don't we set up a network where the services are run from the cloud rather than from the endpoints of each of the customer's premise locations.
And that's because then it's much faster, the performance is better?
Yeah, there's actually, the architecture works much better. And as a result of the architecture being better, your performance is better. The security we can ensure because now, regardless of whether the traffic is going back to the data center or it's going to the public cloud, we can have the same type of security. And one very important thing is that it's a dramatic reduction in cost. And the reason for that dramatic reduction is that not just can you use your private network that you can use today, but you can also use broadband, which tends to be less expensive. You can also bring in wireless, like today 4G LTE, tomorrow 5G. You can bring all of those into the mix and use them all at the same time. That's known as an active-active configuration.
Some situations you're augmenting, right? You're not necessarily replacing the entire MPLS of the network.
That's exactly right. So we don't really go in and say replace your MPLS because customers keep the MPLS, they've bought it over a number of years and it serves a very useful purpose. It's a managed network in what we call as the underlay. And it's managed from a security and performance perspective. So what we say is, you might want more bandwidth. And usually there's an insatiable need for more bandwidth.
Yes.
And so when people say they want more bandwidth, we say, well, you have choice now. You can bring in broadband to augment your MPLS. You can bring in 4G LTE to augment your MPLS. And then when you put all that together, we use the right underlay at the right time and optimize the entire traffic on it.
Okay. And with IoT and a lot more devices, everybody's got more devices. There's just insatiable demand actually for this data flow. And that means that you need a better network to support all of that demand.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, when we talk to companies, businesses of all types are going through this digital transformation phase where various processes within the organization and between organizations is getting digitized. It used to be analog, it's becoming digitized. Now, the foundation of that oftentimes is the network, particularly for distributed businesses. Like if you're a retail business with hundreds of locations, or you're a manufacturing business with maybe thousands of locations, and when you bring that together, the digital transformation has to depend on how is the network connecting all these locations together and connecting them to where the applications are. So we get in oftentimes when a digital transformation project is going on, and then we say that the network needs to be transformed to accommodate for your digital transformation project.
Yes, I think that replacing an existing network vendor is very hard. So you've got to find opportunities where there is a strong chance of coming in as a new vendor.
That's absolutely correct. People do not change their infrastructure very often. It's usually you get a chance once in, a couple of decades or so. So when we see this chance, we've got to go in and move fast. Because when a disruption is happening, when people see a dramatic benefit in the new architecture, then they'll agree to move away from what they're doing currently, which today is this custom proprietary hardware devices that companies will deploy at each of the branch offices of their business. But now we're saying you don't need to do that. We have a much better way of doing it. We're going to save you a ton of money, and we're going to give you better performance and great security.
Okay. And I know that VMware is doing very well. Now that you're part of that, it's going to give VMware even stronger reasons to attract clients. I think that the growth is phenomenal, which means that you're probably also looking to attract talent to grow the company, right? So talk about the culture for me a bit, because I know culture is very important to you, and you talked about how it's crucial to make sure you attract the right people.
Yes, culture is actually very important. only about attracting the right people, but for us as well. And when I say us, I mean, I founded this company with two other folks. There was Steve Wu and Ajit Maya. So these are my co-founders. And when we first founded the company, we said, what are the things that are important to us? But obviously, we want to have a successful company. We want to have product market fit. We want to attract the right investors. And then very importantly, we want to have the right people in the company and set the culture for what we would want for our own company, and therefore what people would want to come in, the place that they would like to come in and work at.
So what do you look for in people when you're interviewing them?
Yeah, so the summary culture of VeloCloud, you can just put in two words. It's learn fast.
Okay.
And the reason that it is learn fast is, I talked about this big edifice crumbling in terms of the current business, the current way of doing networking. This is about $40 billion of business that's going to change hands. It's going to be a new architecture and a new way of doing business that comes in. So in order to be successful in that, it's not like we can just be in stealth mode and then come out one day and be acquired because we've done something that is under the covers. It's very obvious that $40 billion is getting disrupted. So the only competitive advantage is how quickly can you learn. And this learn fast then tells us what kind of people we need to hire.
Okay.
The first thing is that people we hire, they obviously need to be smart, but then they need to have a desire to learn new things.
They be curious.
They must be curious. They must have an innate desire to learn new things. We look for that.
Okay.
It's not like, if you don't have a desire, there's a bad thing, but in order to succeed in this market, must have a desire to learn new things.
I'm wondering, now that you're part of VMware, are you influencing their culture because you have this learn fast mentality? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, we think we're having a positive influence on VMware. Of course, VMware is a very well-run company. They're a large company that's been extremely successful, making the transition from the private data center into the public cloud, getting into the networking space with a completely software-defined approach that's been very successful. But I think we're adding some value. In fact, recently, the three founders of the last three companies that were acquired by VMware, we were asked to have an internal panel on how we can give advice to current VMware managers on how to have a more disruptive mentality, how to have a more innovative mentality. And so we came up with a few things that we thought we could share, and we got positive feedback. So I think yes, the answer is we are having a positive impact on VMware.
Good. Let's talk about challenges then. Not everything is rosy. So tell us, what are some of your challenges that you see?
So I think the first challenge is one of scale, because the business is growing so rapidly. It's how do we accommodate for scale? And scale is many things. The first is attracting good talent.
Okay.
As we spoke about, culture is important. So, finding people who are curious, but then also very important is finding people who want to share their learning with other people.
Okay.
There's lots of folks in Silicon Valley we feel are curious and they're very smart, but sometimes they feel that they are better or smarter than the people around them. Well, that, doesn't help with the learning. So we look for people who want to share their learning with other people. And then we're just looking for folks who want to have fun when they're doing something disruptive.
Okay.
Like if you're concerned and you're afraid about failure and not willing to take that step, then you're not going to learn that new thing. And so we have to create an environment where people can fall down, pick themselves up, and then continue to move on.
So that's encouraging them to try.
Encouraging them to try. So scale is important, which depends on people. It depends on processes. So, as we're looking to expand into tens of thousands of customers, the same process that worked when we had 50 customers doesn't work anymore. And so how do you change the process while you're building the business? That's really important. So we try to bring in the most recent technology, not just for our customers, but also for ourselves. How do we run our business on the most innovative technology? Because we're trying to sell that to the customers themselves.
Okay.
And the third thing is really participating in the Silicon Valley ecosystem, as well as the ecosystem at large, is working with ecosystem partners, trying to find people who are like-minded. Because when big businesses buy technology, they don't buy just your piece.
I see.
They want to make sure it works with this other one and the other one. And so we've got to form this ecosystem of partners.
I see. Okay. And what lessons would you like to share with those who are in the startup, trying to make it, and you made it? So what advice would you give to the entrepreneurs out there? I'm
not very good at giving advice, but I will. So there's three things I think that are really important. Okay. I think the first thing is make sure that there's enough gas in the tank. I mean, this sounds very obvious, but you have to have enough funding so that you can last through. And for the CEO especially, you have to keep a razor eye on what's going on, on that funding. I used to look at it on a daily basis, and I used to mentally think of packets of $10,000. So at the end of the day, I used to think, oh, there's one more packet that has been spent. So when you think of it like that every day, then you have a built-in mentality of how to be frugal, but then also when to look for the next round of funding. So that's the first one. The second one is product market fit. So you would know when you get the product market fit, you should have an innate understanding of it. But don't be fooled around by all the words that you might put out and what customers might tell you. You have to have that feeling that yes, there is a fit now for my product and the market is going to take off. So product market fit is important. And then the third thing that's really important is the culture. So set the right culture right from the beginning. And there's no one way to do the culture, but if you talk about it, then what you want to do, and maybe you have co-founders, what they would want to do, you can all discuss that, put it on a piece of paper, and then stick to it. I think the culture is really important. Instead of changing direction or changing culture, if you stick to one culture, I think that makes companies successful.
Sanjay, I want to ask you about the sales approach or the messaging and positioning. You mentioned ducks and bunnies. What does that mean?
So, everybody knows what a duck is and what a bunny is. Right? So we tell our salespeople, as well as internally, when you want to come and explain something that's complicated, because networking is actually not very simple. Under the covers, it's fairly complicated. Yes. But we are trying to sell a proposition to the customer that we can make your networking automated and simple. So we tell our salespeople that when you go present externally, you should present it and make it as simple as ducks and bunnies. So ducks and bunnies has become a well-known term within VeloCloud. If anyone comes and tries to present something and it's too complicated, we say, stop. Please come back and have a ducks and bunnies presentation.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Well, it's an exciting time because I think you said that right now it is that prime opportunity, that window of opportunity to go in and really disrupt on the network front. So what's exciting? What's the initiative that you're most excited about?
Yeah, so networking usually not very exciting. It's kind of infrastructure space and people say it's not very cool, but it is very exciting right now because tens of billions of dollars of business is going to change hands. The most exciting part of it is, when I go and visit customers and the light bulb goes off. I should do this way. I have to buy all these big, large, custom proprietary boxes and had to train all these people. And now I can really run this from the network, from the cloud. That is very exciting. So when you see that happen to businesses from fashion retail to manufacturing to hospitality, I mean, that is exciting not just for me, but the entire organization. So we come back, we celebrate the wins, we learn from the losses, and then we move on. So these next 2-3 years are going to be tremendous, not just for software-defined WAN, but then as it gets into the new network of 5G that's going to be built, as it pushes deeper into the branch with computing at the edge, with containers, as we look at automating when networks go wrong, how do we fix them in an automated fashion?
Right, self-healing.
Self-healing, people talk about AI and ML, but using analytics from the network and fixing the network, on the fly, that's very exciting. Getting telcos to work with one another in a federated model, that's exciting. So there's a few areas that we have identified that are very exciting for us from a technology standpoint, but also from the standpoint of convincing our customers to adopt this new way of doing business.
Wonderful. Well, I've learned so much. Thank you for letting us know. I mean, I do agree that's a fantastic time for the networking world. So thank you, Sanjay, for being on the show and sharing your thoughts with us.
Not at all. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you to the audience for watching Take It Up with Jessica Lee, Sanjay Uppal from VMware.